mute myself and it's all up to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brian. Well, I want to welcome everybody to our first Minnesota 4-H agronomy lesson. We're going to do 4 of these throughout the month of March and April. So this is our very first one. This is Topsoil Tuesday. And so we're going to be learning a little bit about soil and giving you guys a hands-on chance to see what layers of soil look like. But before we get started, I'll introduce myself. I'm Amy Nelson. I am the 4-H Extension Educator out of Waseca County, and I'm really happy that you could join us today. This is something new for me as well, as I'm sure maybe it is for all of you, so hopefully we'll make it through without any bumps, but I appreciate your patience. If you aren't familiar with 4-H, it's a community of kids. Any kid can be in 4-H. There's a whole bunch of different programs that fit all kinds of interests and backgrounds, budgets, and schedules. So sometimes you'll find 4-H in school. Sometimes you'll find 4-H after school, in clubs and camps. 4-H is everywhere. And it's a positive youth development program, and it's available to anybody. We're in all 87 counties in Minnesota and in all 50 states in the United States, and even in a variety of countries as well. Here in Minnesota, 4-H is brought to you by the University of Minnesota Extension, and we use those extension experts and educators to share university knowledge and information and tools that you can use every day. So this is one example of that. If you're just joining us, we want you to go ahead and put your name, club, 4-H club, if you're in a 4-H club, county where you're joining from, because it's fun to do a roll call and see where everybody's joining from. It sounded like when we got started that we have people from all across Minnesota here, so thank you guys for joining us today. We've got Brian and Kirsten and Anya, who are also part of our Minnesota 4-H agronomy team that will be checking the chats for us. So if at any time you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat box, and they will get me the question, and we'll do our best to answer it, okay? You're free to leave your video on, but just know that if you're having some issues with connectivity, bandwidth speed, that it is easy to go ahead and shut your video off. And that might help your connection a little bit, but hopefully you'll be able to join us. We don't need to see you, but certainly it is fun to see the little faces too as you do the activity with us. So because this is a 4-H lesson, and if you're familiar with 4-H, you know that at the beginning of 4-H meetings, we usually like to start with the 4-H pledge. This is a great way to kind of make us all feel part of the group, and its meaning is as true today as when it was first created. So if you want to put your video on but stay muted, we're going to start with the 4-H pledge today. Okay, so let's go ahead. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, my health to better living, for my family, my club, my community, my country, and my world. And I don't know if we have anybody from out of states joining us, but if we do, you might have noticed that here in Minnesota 4-H, we have an extra word in our pledge. We include the word family because here in Minnesota 4-H, we view 4-H as a family activity, and so we include that in our pledge. So thanks for helping me get started. All right, I'll put the supplies up here again. And again, it's not necessary that you have these exact supplies. If you have other kind of cookies or things that work good to be layered, you can go ahead and grab those now. If you have food allergy or substitution, I know Brian's put the link in the chat for our lessons that give some ideas for substitutions. So if you're allergic to these materials or you don't have them on hand, go ahead and grab any kind of food that you like that tastes good layered. So it might be, you know, fruit and jello or chips and dip, crackers and, crackers and cereal and milk, anything that you have in your house that can be layered that you like how it tastes together, okay? So let's get into our lesson. First of all, this is Topsoil Tuesday, so you might have heard of dirt or soil. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is and what makes soil soil and what makes dirt dirt. So soil is a mixture of 4 ingredients. You'll find weathered rock, which is pieces of rock that have been broken up you know, by different things, maybe impact or erosion, or it just being weathered, maybe knocked around with other rocks. But in soil, you're going to find pieces of rock. You're going to find organic matter, which is things that are living, that are kind of getting broken down. So things like leaves and dirt, or excuse me, leaves and grass, things like that. So organic matter is things that are alive. Air and water. So sometimes when we think of soil, we might not think of air and water being in there, but it is indeed in there. Weathered rock can be in the form of sand, silt, clay, pebbles, or even larger rock. And again, organic matter, we'll talk about that some more as we go into our lesson a little further. But that can be anything like old leaves, maybe even dead animals and plants. And tiny, tiny, tiny little things like bacteria, okay? And then the last two ingredients, air and water. If we don't have air and water in our soil, the microorganisms that we find in there, those little tiny pieces of bacteria, they can't live and keep our soil alive. So the difference between soil and dirt is pretty easy. Soil is soil where it's supposed to be. Dirt is soil that's misplaced. So after you've been playing outside, digging in the garden, maybe climbing in the muddy puddles, you come in, dirt is what's on your hand. Dirt is not alive anymore. Soil is living, okay? So that's the main difference, is that dirt is soil that is misplaced, okay? So now that we've got a little bit of background, soil has some different layers, and we're going to talk now about what those layers are, and we're going to use that to build our snack, okay? Before we get started, we've washed our hands with soap and water, but if you guys haven't had a chance before we get started, go ahead and wash your hands. We're going to use some hand sanitizer. Since we're using food right now, it is very important that we give our hands a good wash. Put some sanitizer on there, okay? And I've got two helpers with me today. This is Andy and Callie. They are members of the Straight River Stars 4-H Club in Steele County, so they're gonna help us with our activity. And we're gonna go ahead, and this is where you can take your glass cup or jar or plastic cup, whatever you have. And if you've got a marker handy, we're gonna use a dry erase marker because this is gonna wash off our glass. If you're using plastic cups, go ahead and use a Sharpie marker or a pen, whatever. But we're gonna mark lines on our cup about 1 inch apart. It's okay if they're not exact. This is one science activity we're doing where we don't need to measure exactly. So put them about 1 inch apart. If you need a guideline for what 1 inch is, it's about from the knuckle of your thumb to the tip of your thumb. So if you guys wanna go ahead and mark your glasses. So I don't know how well you can see it there, but we've got little marks on there. That's just gonna be our way to tell how much ingredients we're gonna put into our soil cup. Okay, so now let's imagine that we're in an elevator, and we're gonna take that elevator all the way down to the bottom of the earth. And as we're going down to the bottom of the earth, we're gonna see the different layers of soil. It's gonna be very distinct. So you're gonna see when it changes from one to the other. Most of the layers are different in color, different in texture. And so we're gonna start our elevator ride all the way at the bottom of the earth. And that is where we're gonna find our bedrock of soil, or excuse me, our bedrock. So we're gonna take one Oreo cookie or anything you have that might be a little bit harder. And you're just gonna set it in the bottom of your cup, okay? So this is gonna represent the bedrock layer. Just like the Oreo cookie, it's hard. So the bedrock layer is hard. It doesn't have really anything growing in there. It's just solid rock. Nothing can really get through to it. And it's at the very bottom, okay? So our next layer then, we're gonna ride our elevator one more layer up. And here we're gonna find our parent material layer, okay? So for this one, you can take some Oreo cookies or whatever you have that you use for bedrock. Yep, and we're gonna crunch it up, okay? So go ahead and crumple it up. Okay. That's okay. All right. Do you want to scoot over so Callie can get in? All right. So again, this is the parent material layer. And this is the one layer up from the bedrock. It's mostly rock, but it's been weathered a little bit. So like we talked about before, weathered is it's broken down a little bit. But since it is mostly rock, maybe just smaller chunks of rock, there's not a lot that can live down there. Maybe some of the very biggest tree roots. But this layer of parent material, this broken up pieces of rock, is eventually going to turn into soil. But right now, it's just bedrock that's broken up. And so again, this layer is parent material. So you can see in your cup, you've got a couple different layers there. Okay.
Hey, Amy, can I just jump in? I see a lot of creative ways people are crushing up their materials or supply. Some people are just plopping it in. Others are using baggies to crunch it up. So a lot of creativity out there.
Way to go. Yep, we just used our hands. So we're not always very good at crushing things up with rolling pins and things like that. So however you can get your stuff broken up into your parent material layer is awesome. All right. Now, let's take our elevator ride one more step up, and we're going to visit the subsoil layer, okay? So you notice how I talked about earlier that each layer you can tell is different. It looks different. It's made of different things, and it's different in color. So our subsoil layer is a little bit lighter. This has a lot of sand and silt and clay that hasn't been broken down all the way yet. So it doesn't have that organic material in like we've talked about, and you can't really grow too much crops in there. So for this layer, this subsoil, we're going to use vanilla pudding. So you can see Andy putting his vanilla pudding in. Well, this one, he had said, well, maybe you could use chocolate. Well, we're going to use chocolate pudding for our next layer because that's darker. So for this one, if you have vanilla pudding, or, you know, if you're using vegetable dip or salsa, this is where you can add that one in. Okay. We'll turn it so we can see our other helper, Callie. She's getting hers layered in there. And so don't forget, you like vanilla pudding. So we've got a lot of subsoil in this one. I'm going to go ahead and add that in mine. Okay. All right. So again, the subsoil layer doesn't have a lot of living material in it, and it's lighter in color than our next layer. So let's ride our elevator to the very next layer, and that's the topsoil, okay? So move our vanilla pudding out of the way, and we're gonna use chocolate pudding for this one. Cal, if you wanna scoot over here so we can see you. Okay?
It's gonna be too much.
That's fine. All right, so our topsoil layer, this is the one that's really rich in materials. This one is has a lot of the organic material in it. It's darker in color, but this is where the magic happens. This is where the things can grow. It's darker in color because it has decaying plant and animal matter in it, which sounds kind of gross, but at the same time, it's very important for that stuff so we have healthy soil. So if you haven't added your chocolate pudding yet, you can go ahead and add your chocolate pudding in for your topsoil. Some of the other layers of soil you probably haven't seen before, but the topsoil is what you see pretty often. So again, you can see it's layered. You can kind of still see your bedrock and your parent material and your subsoil and your topsoil. Okay? Now, if you have gummy worms, we're gonna go ahead and add some gummy worms into our topsoil. Worms are a good example of what's called a decomposer. And decomposers, like worms, are important to have in our soil because they help break all that organic matter up. So all those leaves and plant materials and animal bits, those worms help decompose that up. And so that helps keep our soil healthy. Okay, so worms are important for our soil health. All right, and next, we have a very, very thin layer of what we're gonna call organic layer. So this is where if you have any sprinkles, you can go ahead and add sprinkles on, or if you wanna crush up some more pieces of cookies, if you don't happen to have sprinkles or more chips, whatever you have, feel free to sprinkle that on top. And again, remember, this is a very thin layer. This organic layer has a lot of the living material in it, plants, decaying leaves, needles, moss, kind of all kinds of things. But again, it's very thin And this one is darker in color than our topsoil. So there we have it. We've built our soil layers. So you can see it. Mine's maybe not the best example. Let's show Andy and Callie's here. Theirs are brimming to the top. First we have the bedrock and the parent material, the subsoil, the topsoil, and then the organic layer. All right, so as you guys eat your delicious treat, if you have other people that you're viewing with, here's some questions that we can talk about while you're eating your treat. Go ahead and dig in. If you've got it completed and ready to try.
It might make a mess.
My helpers say it's pretty good. But, you know, as you're eating this, let's talk about some things. Why is soil important? If you guys want to unmute yourself and answer or type your questions in your chat box, go ahead and do that. But why do you think soil is important?
Okay, now talk. Why is soil so important?
It holds roots.
Okay, we need soil to help hold the roots, right? If we didn't have anything to kind of help anchor those plant roots, our plants would fall over and they won't last very long. Good answer. Other answers?
Nobody's planted in soil.
Do I have any important reason?
Yep, and we use that soil to grow our crops and the things that we eat and the trees that we use to build homes and businesses, and pretty much everything we use and eat comes from the soil. So it's important that we have good soil to grow our materials in, whether it's plants or fibers for clothing. We need soil.
Amy, there's some fun chats going on in the chat box. There's a couple of people that have said that it gives worms a place to live, which is very good. Holding water, helping plants grow, helping vegetables grow. So a lot of good chat answers in the chat box.
Yes, you guys got the hang of this. That's right. Soil is very important. You know, some plants might not necessarily need soil to live in. You might have seen plants like growing in the cracks of a sidewalk, but really, can you grow big trees or crops to eat in sidewalk cracks? No, you need soil to be able to grow things, okay? Now, who remembers the 4 layers of soil?
I need to use the bathroom.
Does anybody remember those 4 layers of soil without going back to our slide?
Another 4 layers.
Bedrock is one.
The second one?
I forgot.
Press up.
Soil.
Parental
material. Parental material.
Okay, parent material. Yep, that's a layer. Very good.
What's the white?
Okay. I don't care if you want to go anywhere.
Bedrock.
Yep, bedrock is that very hard. Yep.
Return.
Bedrock.
If it returns, so I
Topsoil.
find it. It's all right here.
All right, so we've got our bedrock at the very bottom, and then we've got our parent material and our subsoil, our topsoil, and then our organic matter. Sometimes people will call it litter, but that can be confusing with litter that we find in the road ditches. So for today, we'll call it organic matter. All right. All right. How about let's think about if our soil isn't healthy. What could happen if we don't have very healthy soil? And maybe how do you know if your soil isn't healthy?
Your food your food will not be as good.
Right. If you don't have healthy soil, you might not be able to grow the food that you need. Absolutely.
Plants won't grow well.
What was that?
The plants won't grow well.
That's right. Our plants aren't going to grow very well if our soil isn't healthy. Does anybody know how we can tell if our soil isn't healthy?
I think it will be less darker.
If you remember that topsoil is that most important layer. All the layers of soil are very important, but the topsoil layer is the layer that's really rich in nutrients and materials and really does the best job growing things. things, crops and plants don't really grow too well in the other layers of soil. And so, you know, our farmers that are growing crops, they take some pretty good measures to make sure that we have enough topsoil. You might have heard of erosion, where the wind and the water, rain, things like that can wash our topsoil away. And so if we don't have very much topsoil, our other layers of soil aren't going to grow very many things. So you can tell, you know, how much topsoil is there by looking at your different layers. Remember, the topsoil is really dark because it's rich in nutrients. And so, yep, many farmers do what they can to make sure that they have healthy soil. As we wrap up today, I want to give you guys a few different exhibit ideas for county fair. While this, our soil cup that we did today is a delicious treat, you might be wanting to know more about soil and some different things that relate to soil and how you can turn that into a 4-H project and what you can exhibit at the county fair related to soil. So there's a 4-H project in Minnesota called Plant and Soil Science. So there's some different things you can do in that category. You could do an exhibit about different soil types. I know we've got people from all over Minnesota joining us today, and what my soil is like here in southern Minnesota is definitely not what the soil is like in northern Minnesota, Texas, or maybe even a few counties over, or even down in Texas. Yep. So maybe looking into the different types of soil and doing kind of a comparison about where the different soil types are, what grows best in different soil types. You'll find that depending on what types of soil there are might affect what kind of crops people grow or what kind of plants people grow. So that's one idea that you could turn into a county fair exhibit. Another one is to do some research around soil temperatures. What temperature does the soil need to be at for you to start growing crops or plants? I know now with the nice weather, many of us are anxious to get outside and get growing some seeds and plants, but the soil might not be warm enough. So
it might freeze.
Exactly, it might freeze, and that could affect.
And it might snow some more.
That could affect your growing. So you can pick up a soil thermometer, I think, at different farm stores or even on Amazon, and do some research on different soil temperatures. What temperature does it need to be to grow potatoes or green beans or sweet corn? So that might be another idea. Another idea is if you want to take a look at soil health, there's a kind of a fun activity where you can get either like a cotton t-shirt that doesn't have any printing on, you want just a plain cotton t-shirt, or even a pair of cotton underwear, but then you bury that in the soil and you just let a little bit stick out so you remember where you buried it, and then in a month or two you go back and check it, and the healthier your soil is, the more of your t-shirt or undies is going to be decomposed. There's not going to be very much there. If your soil isn't very healthy, there's going to be a lot of material left. So those are just some different activities you can do to turn into a county fair exhibit. You can also do what's called a soil shakeup, where you put some soil in a jar and then put some water in there. You want to dig down about 6 inches into the earth and grab soil from about 6 inches down. And then you put that soil in a jar and then fill it to the top with water. Shake the jar for a few minutes. Then you can set your jar down, and eventually it's going to start to separate out. You might see some sand, you might see some silt, you might see some clay, but keep checking it. Check it an hour after you do it, check it a day after you do it, check it every day.
Check it a month after you do it.
Maybe even a month.
Check it a year.
Yep. We're very excited to do our soil shake-up jars later. But that's going to kind of tell you what's in your soil, if you have a lot of sand in your soil or if you have a lot of silt in your soil. But that's a good way to see what kind of soil type you're working with.
Hey, Amy?
Yep.
A couple ideas, or there's an idea in the chat box. Don't forget about the Science of Agriculture Challenge in Minnesota. And then a question is, what is the parent material next to the bedrock layer composed of?
All right, so I'm going to go back to that parent material. That one is composed of mostly just broken down rock. So it's not quite the solid rock that the bedrock is, but it's just broken down rock that will eventually turn into soil. So you might see a little bit of soil in there, but for the most part, that parent material is just broken down rock, just not the big solid rock that the bedrock is. Does that answer your question? If not, reach at it and we'll try and give you some more. I am by no means a soil health expert or a soil expert, but that's what that is. And then as far as the science of ag, Brian, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit more about that, if you have some more experience with that.
I will. Why don't you follow up with one more question here is,
Okay.
how deep is bedrock?
Oh, wow, that's a stumper question. And you know what? I should have researched that a little bit more. Gosh, I don't even know. Maybe I could have one of my helpers go look. They're going to go do some research and see how deep is bedrock.
So
Okay.
while they're doing the research, maybe I can answer the Science of Ag Challenge question.
Sounds good.
So for those 4-H members who are a little bit older, kind of middle school to high school, we have what's called the Science of Ag Challenge. And so that's having a group of 2 to 3 to 5 on a team, and you take a topic, a research topic, and really study it and do some testing. So for this one with soil, you could see how different soils grow different types of crops with either low moisture, high moisture, with fertilizer, without fertilizer. So there's some different ways that you could research and do some testing, and then bring your project to the Science of Ag Challenge. So that's just kind of one example using our topic today. But it's really taking a topic, finding someone, an expert in your community to learn more about that topic. So for soil, you might find a soil and water conservation specialist in your county or your community. You might find someone from even extension. We have crops educators or educators that work just with soils, and they can help you kind of explore some topics, do some research, and then you can share your data, what you've learned in that Science of Ag Challenge topic. So that's just, again, a quick sample on how that connects to our topic today. How are you doing on your answer on how deep is bedrock there, Amy?
Fantastic. We were able to find kind of a neat map. I don't know if you can see this on the Minnesota DNR website. So just do a simple Google search of how deep is bedrock in Minnesota. Of course, it varies. It's going to be way deeper in other parts of Minnesota or even other parts of the country or the world than it is here. And it looks like, from what I can tell, kind of that northeast corner of the state, so International Falls, Virginia, Ely, that part, where it's a little more mountainous than it is down here in flat southern Minnesota. It's about 0 to 10 feet from the surface. So you don't have to go very far there to get bedrock. But of course, that's more mountainous than where it's flat here. Around here, south central Minnesota, it's about 100 to 300 feet deep. So you'd have to dig a very big hole to get to the bedrock. It looks like Detroit Lakes, Park Rapids, that area is where it's deepest at in Minnesota. And that's 600 feet to anywhere from 600 to 1,050 feet.
So Amy, I'm feeling this could be a potential 4-H exhibit for your county fair, is actually learning about your bedrock where you live in your community, in your county, and actually create a model of what that bedrock would look like and bring that to the exhibit for the fair. What do you think? Would I get a blue ribbon on that?
I think if you can explain that, you would definitely get a blue ribbon on that, and tell me about why you chose to do that. And maybe even look at, okay, what kind of things grow in those areas? Does what grow in those areas change based on how deep the bedrock is? How does that affect life in those areas if our bedrock is deeper or shallower?
Also in the chat, Margot Bowerman had put the link to the Science of Ag Challenge, which will take you to our website. So if those of you want to check that out, you can click that link. And Amy, I included the lesson plan one more time. I see some parents in the background that if they wanted to, they can download or check that link out to check out the lesson plan for today.
Sounds good. And I'm just going to do a quick little preview. Keep asking questions if you have them. But I do want to do a preview for next Wednesday. You've heard from Brian a little bit today. Next Wednesday is going to be our second Minnesota 4-H agronomy lesson. And Brian's going to teach us all about weeds. It's a Weed ID Wednesday. It sounds like it's going to be super fun. I think we'll get to do some interactive games as we learn about different weeds and try to identify them. So that's next Wednesday, April 8th at 2 o'clock. And you can go to the same link that you went to today. That's at z.umn.edu/growwith4h. And you'll be able to join us for Weed ID Wednesday. And this one, Brian, I don't think has too many supplies. If you have like a mobile device, you should be able to join in our games. So we won't have a real lot of supplies for that one, but just a fun interactive way that you can learn more about weeds.
And even if you don't have a device, you just have a piece of paper, you'll still be able to do the activities. So no matter what you have at home, you're still gonna be able to participate.
Sounds good. All right, so I'll
we
leave
do
that
have
one.
a couple more questions in the chat, Amy. One is, could plants die in soil? I also see, as Amy's thinking about that answer, Morgan has said that, and she's put her contact information. If anyone wants to know more about the science of ag, she has been a participant and is willing to share her experience with that. So thank you, Morgan, for doing that. And then I'll answer this last question, and Amy, I'll turn it back to you. We will send out this link again statewide before the next one. So if you forget or that type of thing, we will provide an email e-blast through our 4-H online system. So you'll get notified of another one. Amy,
Okay.
back to
And
you.
what was that first question about plants dying?
Well, could they die in soil?
You know what? That's an excellent question. That would make another good experiment for you. We had an experiment going when we first started our self-isolation. About these are some oat seeds that we grew in cups, and it's got soil in there. We just used regular potting soil. But my daughter Callie, who was a clover bud, so we tried different things. We tried to water them with different things. So one cup had water. This is our cup that we grew with coffee. We tried a cup to water it with milk, and then one with Coke, Coca-Cola. And
Amy,
the only
can you
one
put a little closer to the camera? I've seen people try to get up real close to see. There, thank you.
Yep. So just a few oat seeds in some potting soil that we had. We of course put some drainage holes at the bottom. But what we found, Kelly, you want to tell what we learned in our experiment? What grew the best?
Water and coffee.
Water and coffee. Water was,
Because coffee kind of has water.
yep, coffee's made up a lot of water. And the milk seeds, the one we watered with milk, those came up, but then it got rotten. It got really stinky. So that one only lasted a few days before we threw that out. And then our one with Coke, it did come up, but it was the coffee and the water ones came up, like 4 days after we planted them. So it was really quick. The Coke one took a little bit longer. And then it got stinky and rotten and moldy on top too. So even though I wanted to show you this, because even though the seeds were in soil, how we watered them and what we watered with did affect them. So if you used even too much water, that could maybe kill your seed off, or if you didn't water it enough. I know before we started working from home, I was trying to grow some herbs in my office and they didn't come up because I don't think they had enough water. So yes, even though seeds are in soil, they could die, but that would be a good experiment to turn into a project to see, okay, how much water do I need? Or is there something that works better than water? Or does light affect what the soil is, or different types of soil? So there's a lot of neat opportunities there. So I'm glad you asked that question. Any other questions?
Yes, here's another one, and maybe before I ask you this one, Amy, I'm just going to remind participants not to jump off right away. We have a poll at the end. We want to hear from you before you jump off, so just wait for the poll to pop up here in a little bit. But the question, Amy, is, can dirty water affect the plant's growth?
Can dirty water affect the plant's growth? You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I want to challenge you guys to try that. That would be super easy to do if you have access to any kind of seeds at home, whether it's grass seeds, flower seeds, vegetable seeds. maybe you cut a green pepper open and you pull the seeds out of there, but maybe do an experiment and see. Maybe you have 4 or 5 different cups. Use one with just plain water. And maybe, you know, have different cups that the water gets increasingly dirty. And maybe it's not just dirty water. Maybe you add some kind of pollutant to it. You know, maybe there's some garbage that you want to add to it or things like that to kind of replicate how plants grow outside. That would be an excellent 4-H project that you could turn into a county fair exhibit. And I would love to hear how that goes for you. So I'll put up the link for our Minnesota Agronomy website, so there's some more ideas that you can turn to. But I encourage you guys, I love the creativity that I've been hearing in these comments and questions today, and I know you guys are gonna have some time now to do some really awesome projects, and I can't wait to hear what you all come up with. All right, and it looks like Brian's got the poll up for us, so if you guys want to go ahead and put your answers in there and give us some feedback on what you liked about today and how it worked for you. This will help us as we further our other experiments or our other lessons in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Amy. And again, I don't see any questions in the chat. So as Amy said, remember, hopefully you can join us again next week. Again, we thank you for taking some time out of your day and participating with Amy and her lesson, and provide us feedback in the poll. And I've also put my email address in the chat, so you can provide us feedback that way as well. So thanks for joining us. And after you finish the poll, you're free to go. So thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you, guys. I can't wait to see what your soil experiments look like and how you decide to learn from here. And just a reminder too, as we try and grow the 4-H agronomy project in Minnesota, there's many different opportunities. Of course, right now with our not being able to do face-to-face, there's not as many opportunities, but we're working on some more. So things like these lessons, but there's also things like project kits and different things that you guys can start growing now to participate in the agronomy project. I know a lot of times when people think of agronomy, they think of that jar of corn and soybeans, and we want to show you guys that it's really a lot more than just corn and soybeans. There's really a lot of things that you can grow and study and do in agronomy. And hopefully today you got some ideas for some steps that you can take to make it a little bit more. Yeah, so if you've answered the questions on the poll, then that wraps up today, our lesson today, and we hope to see you back next Wednesday for Weed ID Wednesday. So thanks, guys, for tuning in.